Hey there, and welcome to the Jason Wright Show, where the mission is to improve always and always. So today, I am starting what might become a new series called These Are Movies You Should Watch. And here's the reason why. This movie in particular is one that it's a documentary, and it's called Love, Charlie, and I found it on Netflix. And to me, I knew nothing about Charlie Trotter. I'm not exactly what you would call a foodie. I'm not interested in Anthony Bourdain or Gordon Ramsay or Bobby Flay. I'm just not into that. That's not my thing. So you don't have to be one of those guys that watches the Food Network and all the cooking shows to appreciate this incredible documentary. And here is why I think that anyone who wants to improve needs to watch it. This is an example of a guy who not only was excellence his pursuit, but it is almost what broke him. And so I've got several things that I want to cover in this analysis of this film, but I think that anyone that is striving for excellence and wants to pursue a dream, this would be a good documentary. Before we even get into my full-blown commentary on it and my review of it, I want you to watch the trailer. So let's do that.
If it weren't for employees and if it weren't for the customers, the restaurant business would be the greatest business in the world. And basically, I hate people. So, but you can't put that out there. Right?
No, we
All
can't.
right. Thank you.
Charlie Trotter's restaurant was amazing. As good as anywhere you could eat in a 3-star restaurant in France.
Charlie was out there, way out there.
He wasn't going to stand for mediocrity.
The reputation of the restaurant and the fame and fortune would all become bound up in his identity.
Towards the end, it was to the point like, Charlie, why?
You can't do the same thing forever. You might go completely insane.
So many people don't know Charlie. They know this persona.
He was the first American kid to be really fearless, to invent new things.
He had to express himself or he would have exploded.
He would write to me that people thought he was a total enigma, and he often felt very isolated and very alone and like nobody understood.
Charlie was really a control freak.
He was known as a tyrant.
He was the puppeteer. He figured out a way to get what he wanted from all of us.
You're really getting on my nerves at this point, sir.
He was being questioned like he had never been questioned before.
Why couldn't he reimagine his food, and why couldn't he reimagine himself?
Nobody appreciates legacy. And if you're not on top in that moment, you just don't matter.
Being Charlie Trotter, that was almost a sentence in some ways.
I don't know if Charlie really knew how many people that he impacted. He is definitely a legend.
All right, so where to begin? First of all, Charlie Trotter he grew up as kind of like just a middle-class kid. His dad was very successful, and he had a certain eccentric nature about him that was noticeable from the get-go. And it was when he was in college at the University of Wisconsin that he starts cooking and then becomes really obsessed with culinary arts. And the thing that I love about this movie is it shows a guy that takes a passion, turns it into a vocation, and then makes it his obsession. If you've ever wondered what an Ayn Rand character looks like in real life, Charlie Trotter is a great example. And as you know, if you've studied Ayn Rand at all, if you've read The Fountainhead, if you've read Atlas Shrugged, you know that her characters are every bit as flawed as they are amazing. Howard Rourke in The Fountainhead, while there's so many things to admire about his individualism, his independence, and his absolute unwillingness to bend on his integrity. At the same time, if you really considered bringing a Howard Rourke into the world, you realize that he would cause a lot of collateral damage. For example, if he were to have a wife and children, they would suffer as a result of his extreme uber independence. And this is exactly kind of the downfall of Charlie Trotter. So what I really loved watching the movie for was that I would give anything to be as passionate about something, anything, as Charlie Trotter was, his restaurant and cooking. Now, I say that But one of the reasons why I don't think I've ever pursued some of my own ambitions to the degree that he did is because I don't want to have the downside of it, which is losing my family. And that's essentially what he did with his first wife. I mean, this was somebody that he started dating after college. They went to they were just friends. He goes to Paris and they kind of are just buddies rooming together. Then they take their friendship into intimacy and they end up getting married. And she was on this journey with him from the very beginning. Then all of a sudden she realized she had been pushed aside and the restaurant was everything. And he became obsessive about the restaurant to the point where it drove him crazy and it drove everyone around him away. He was a real life Miranda Priestley. I mean, he was that kind of guy. If you've ever seen the movie Burnt with Bradley Cooper, another good film. However, it's interesting. I think that both Chef with Jon Favreau, another similar kind of chef movie that kind of gives the understanding of just how hard and brutal and personal this business is to these guys that are chefs that work their way up to these kitchens. I think Chef and Burnt are both great movies. Although I was surprised whenever I read the reviews. Actually, I say reviews. I was reading a Reddit thread about Burnt because I wanted to see if Burnt had any ties to this movie about Charlie Trotter or about Charlie Trotter's life. And people were like kind of bashing Bradley Cooper's movie, but I think Burnt's a great movie. Check it out. I think it's a good film. And so I was wondering, did that movie, was it inspired by Charlie Trotter? Because he is such an antisocial, independent misfit that you just know that there's something different about the guy. There's one scene that was particularly my favorite scene in the entire movie that I think we can all learn from. And so I just want to kind of zoom out for a minute and tell you that I'm recommending this film as kind of a self-improvement film, which is kind of weird. I understand. But understand this, that I'm not saying you should watch this because you love cooking shows. I'm not that guy. I'm not saying that you should watch this show because you want to see a guy have a meteoric rise, then a crumble, and just you get off on that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this is a real life example of a guy that absolutely pursued and achieved excellence. And there's one line or one segment of the film where Charlie Trotter's talking about how he was working at this restaurant. It might have been in Paris. I think it might have been in Paris. I can't remember. And his shift started at 4:00. And he would show up every morning at 10 a.m. to prepare for his shift that started at 4:00. And eventually the owners of the restaurant, I guess the head chef and the other owner or whatever, they told him, said, "Hey, Charlie, look, we got it. You're good. You're a hard worker. You don't have to come in here at 10 o'clock. You don't have to do that." And the way he responded said everything about Charlie Trotter. And to me is why this movie is worth watching. He said, "You guys don't understand." He said, "You think I work for you. I don't. I work for me." And that attitude is so unbelievably rare. It is so rare. As a business owner myself, as someone who has managed people and other businesses, and someone who likes to kind of think of himself as being independent and very conscientious about the work that I do, I thought that was so incredibly remarkable that Charlie Trotter, he made it abundantly clear to these guys that you have to understand, I am striving towards something that is beyond what you will ever even ask of me. You don't have to tell me to get here early. I'm going to get here early for me because that's what it means to me. And that's the good side of the kind of Ayn Rand type character, that uber independent person, that independent spirit. It's like, I am pursuing excellence for me. It's kind of like Ivan Drago in Rocky saying he fights for him. It's this burning to be better than what is expected of you because your standards for yourself are so much higher than that which anyone else could ever have for you. And to me, that's what makes this movie worth watching, is just to watch someone pursue that sort of excellence and be inspired by it. Now, I don't want to give any spoilers, but obviously, like so many other mad geniuses and people that are just so just intense about what they do, there is a dark side to the story of Charlie Trotter. And maybe you know his story if you know anything about it. Maybe that's why you clicked on this, is because you're from Chicago, or you're into the culinary arts and you knew this. I did not. I knew nothing. I knew nothing about Charlie Trotter, but I can tell you this: I left this film both admiring him as well as pitying him. But here's the thing: when you live a life of absolute excellence, people tend to be willing to overlook a lot of the pain that you caused due to the excellence that you exuded while you were on this planet. So that to me is why Love Charlie, about Charlie Trotter, unbelievable chef, one of the greatest American chefs of all time. I mean, we're talking about a guy that food porn, Charlie Trotter started that in his cookbooks. Celebrity chefs really didn't exist before Charlie Trotter, and then Emeril Lagasse and all these guys that I hadn't heard about in years. I mean, he was one of the guys that started that whole thing. And he was one of the guys that in the 80s, whenever the culinary arts really started to take off and reach people like me, just normal, average, everyday suburbanites, and people that were kind of the middle class, middle of the road folks that didn't get to go to just the 5-star and the three-star rated Michelin restaurants. That whole wave, he was a part of that, and he had such an influence on the industry as a whole. And it was really cool. It's just, to me, whenever you find somebody that is so freaking unbelievably good at what they do, works so unbelievably hard to the point where it leaves a ripple effect, where Anthony Bourdain and Gordon Ramsay and Wolfgang Puck and all these other just celebrity rock star chefs point to this guy and go, there was no other like him. He was unbelievable. He was amazing. It's inspiring. So check it out. I definitely think Love Charlie is a movie that you should watch. Thanks for listening.